the line of questioning by Republicans when Anthony Fauci was testifying before Congress. So this just recently happened. They're still pushing hydroxychloroquine. In fact, one representative brought up a terrible study that was done by the Henry Ford Center, allegedly showing the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine. And the question here is whether Fauci agreed with the old doctors he had spoken to. Let's take a quick look at how that conversation went down.
And in talking with a lot of older doctors who have been around a while, and I trust their judgment and their use of hydroxychloroquine, they say that the initial studies didn't really use zinc with it, and they say that zinc is an enabler to be able to help hydroxychloroquine actually do its job. Would you like to comment on that?
The Henry Ford Hospital study that was published was a non-controlled retrospective cohort study that was confounded by a number of issues, including the fact that many of the people who were receiving hydroxychloroquine were also receiving corticosteroids, which we know from another study gives a clear benefit in reducing deaths with advanced disease. So that study is a flawed study, and I think anyone who examines it carefully is that it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
It says it's peer-reviewed.
It doesn't matter. You can peer review something that's a bad study, but the fact is it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial. The point that I think is important, because we all want to keep an open mind, any and all of the randomized placebo-controlled trials, which is the gold standard of determining if something is effective, none of them had shown any efficacy for hydroxychloroquine.
Okay, so two questions for you, Nando, and two questions for the audience as well. Who do we trust here? Anthony Fauci, who brought up valid concerns regarding the methodology of this Henry Ford Center study, or do we trust the political party that has tried to validate the argument made by the demon semen doctor that we heard from earlier? And for all of you who are like, oh, she's a doctor, she's licensed, how dare you? Yeah, no, how dare you? How dare you? Listen to that ridiculous rant she gave while preaching to whomever and argue that she has any validity to tell American people to not wear masks and to take a drug that has been disproven in multiple studies as a potential treatment or cure to hydroxychloroquine. Secondly, here's the second question. Do we trust Anthony Fauci, or do we trust the line of questioning coming from this member of Congress who still doesn't know how to put a mask on properly? Come on.
Oh man, I mean, bless Anthony Fauci. Honestly, I feel bad for that man. He's doing the Lord's work. He's doing his best. What can you do other than just be like, Fauci, you're a good man. You can tell in his face that he's a good man, and he's, yeah. You know what I mean. He's got a good man face.
The patience, the patience
is almost infinite. I mean, I think what's going on here with all this I don't even know how the hell to say it, but it's there's two things kind of converging. One is the sort of long time Republican and billionaire-led kind of legitimization of scientific inquiry and all that stuff. Started off obviously with tobacco and climate change, which has, it used to be that the sort of leadership of the Republican Party knew it was all wrong and lies, but it was something that they fed the rubes, but now the rubes are in power and they actually believe this stuff. So that's part of it. I mean, the other thing that's going on is that they need a silver bullet for the pandemic. They need to keep the wheels spinning. They cannot let this economy stop anymore. Like America runs on shopping and all that stuff, and they can't comprehend anything but that. So anything that involves any sort of self-sacrifice, any sort of collective coming together to do something is just so far beyond their own mental plane that they need to worship to the god of shopping. So they need to find a silver bullet. So those are the two things that are happening right now. It's very obvious, it's very transparent. And poor Anthony Fauci is like the guy who's just standing there having to explain to these people that that all this crank stuff is just gonna get us all killed.
And then one final part of this that I just had to share with the audience. There's pearl clutching on both sides of the aisle. There's no question about that. And nothing made that clearer other than Steve Scalise pretending to be so offended at Anthony Fauci's suggestion that this country hasn't had a valid plan in response to the pandemic. Let's take a quick look at that.
For anybody to suggest that there's not a plan, in fact, when you look at the title of today's hearing, urgent need for a plan, that's not the title of a hearing, that's a political narrative, and a false political narrative at that. You wouldn't even be here today if there wasn't a plan, because you are the people tasked with carrying out the plan. In fact, if you were sidelined, you wouldn't be here either. And I know some people want to suggest that, but maybe they haven't spent time reading different components of the plan. And let me thank you on behalf of the millions of American people who are alive today that wouldn't be alive if you weren't carrying out President Trump's effective plan.
Again, going back to questions of validity, do we trust Anthony Fauci, or do we trust a man who thought it was a great idea to call himself David Duke, but without the baggage, and then later realize maybe that wasn't a good idea and then take it back? You know, the kind of guy who wouldn't really think ahead or think of plans when it comes to dealing with anything. You know, he's just such a clown. If there actually were a plan, that plan pretty much sucks, because if you look at the numbers, the United States, for instance, is #1 in the world when it comes to infections, #4 per capita in infections, behind Chile, Kuwait, and Peru. And we just passed 150,000 deaths, as I've been mentioning on the show repeatedly. And need I remind you, we've been sucking a lot more compared to pretty much every other country. This is one of Cenk's favorite graphs because it really helps you visualize how terrible the United States has been in comparison to the European Union with coping with and dealing with coronavirus. I mean, just look at that graph. It is unbelievably embarrassing. And you have these ridiculous Republicans gaslighting every single American by telling them, no, we nailed it. We nailed it. We have a plan. I'm gonna go ahead and lift up a heavy, stack of papers. And yeah, okay. All right, that's all the proof we need. Everything's working, sure.
I just love like he just like lifts up a stack of papers that like it just says on the cover like the plan, and it's just like he's like, guys, got it right here, you know. Like there's 0%, like it's lorem ipsum, you know, like over and over again on those papers. You know, it's just so obvious and transparent. I just love it. It's like a Looney Tunes thing or something. It's like, well, we have the plan right here, guys. So good.
Yeah, I feel like we're living in a cartoon, and it's pretty bad.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.